So it seems that we've got a rather surprising brand new model for Marneus Calgar on the way, the chapter master of the Ultramarines going back into Terminator armour. Hello and welcome back to Warspecs Tactics, where today we're talking about an interesting leak for what looks to be a new model for the Ultramarines. For some reason it seems that Marneus Calgar is getting yet another resculpt, so let's talk about what we know, the leak and any details that we can see of the new model, just why the chapter master of the Ultramarines might be getting yet another resculpt, and any implications that it could have in-game. Marneus Calgar is certainly one of the bigger name chapter masters in Warhammer 40K. The Ultramarines basically the poster boys of the setting, and at least until Rabute Gilliman turned up again, Marneus Calgar being their faction commander, and is still very much in charge of the Ultramarines, with Rabute Gilliman having to oversee the entire Imperium right now. It's pretty much the epitome of being a Space Marine, ridiculous numbers of great deeds to his name, both in terms of tactical command and personal melee prowess, generally taking to the fight with heavy armour and the gauntlets of Ultramar, and represented by this Primaris era model in Gravis armour, which is sold alongside a pair of Victrix Honour Guards. There were some rumblings and rumours that he might well be getting a new model, the main reason being that Games Workshop seemed to have marked him sold out on the UK and EU web store. First up, he was marked as sold out online, and then his listing just taken down altogether, and often when they use that code it means that the model's going away and not coming back, though sometimes it can be because they're reboxing things in some way. He is still up for sale in the USA and Canada and Australia and New Zealand, but we've had it really quite a few times in the past now where the models have gone off sale in the UK EU one first, and then only later had the same thing happen in other places around the world. A fair few of the combat patrols have gone that way. My first reaction was that it might just be a rebox of some kind. His sprue is split up so he doesn't actually share a sprue with those Victrix Honour Guard. You could have potentially just had him released as an individual character, or them coming out individually, but seems maybe a bit of a weird time to do it if so. If they were going to mess around with the way that an Ultramarines character was sold, it probably made more sense to do that when a Space Marine Codex comes out, as opposed to mid-edition. As mentioned though, in actual fact it looks like we do have a new model for him. This picture's been going around several faction-specific Discord servers earlier today, though I believe it might have originated from over on 4chan, thanks to those who made me aware of it. The reason that he is rather awkwardly missing his face is the original source seems to have done sort of meme with it about the Black Library author Andy Smiley. I don't really get what they're referencing there, though apparently he's one of the ones working on the Amazon show thing with Henry Cavill, or that's what they said a while back. Clearly though, it doesn't really obscure much of the model, just his face, and you can see the rest of it, and it very much does look like a legit leak. It's got absolutely all the trappings of a redesigned Marneus Calgar in Terminator armour, but all of them are genuinely different to the ones that came before. And it clearly seems to be in 10th edition Terminator style. I really don't think this one's a fake. Usually it's super easy to tell from bits grabbed from other miniatures, and it tends to be in super low res to disguise all the edits they've done. In any case, missing bits aside, we can clearly see the vast majority of the new Calgar model. It seems that he's been redone in Terminator armour 10th edition style. Previously he was in Gravis armour called the Armour of Heracles. I think I might have expected him to be in Terminator armour, but I wonder if they did him in Gravis originally because Primaris scale Terminators simply weren't a thing yet. The majority of his heraldry and trappings are pretty similar to how they were previously. I guess he now has the Crux Terminatus on him for being in Terminator armour, but otherwise he's still got the Eagle style shoulder pad, the sort of loincloth thing that ends in the Ultramarine chapter logos, and a big chapter logo both as his iron halo and on his belt. Perhaps for some of the bigger differences, he's got a great big heraldic brooch and seems to have a gladius style sword on his belt, but that does seem like a bit of a weird decision given that he's got the enormous gauntlets on. I can't help but think that you're going to ruin your fancy Ultramarine power sword if you try and pick it up in power fists. For his posing, he's stepping up on a shattered column. I guess that's appropriate enough for Ultramar with their sort of pseudo-Roman themes. And the last one maybe had a bit more of an active pose with one gauntlet in the air and one of them laid down firing. This one's holding them a bit further down, possibly aiming to be blazing away with one of them perhaps. Obviously we can't see his head, but if you edit in one of the more past model heads, he might look something like this, typically depicted with sort of shortish grey hair and a bionic eye. In recent Space Marine models, they've been making some efforts so you've both got a helmeted and a bare head, and I'd absolutely expect that of such a caliber model as this guy. Finally though, it is kind of notable he's not accompanied by his Victrix Honour Guard as best we can see here. That maybe was a bit more of an unusual choice to have both the main man himself and also a small retinue go along, and I would guess if they re-release him with Terminator armour, they probably wouldn't be in the box. In any case, here's a side-by-side between the Terminator model and his current one. As you can see, the vast majority of his stylings are fairly similar. Slightly different designs on the gauntlets of Ultramar, but beyond that most things are pretty similar. An eagerly shoulder pads, Ultramarines icons in roughly the same sort of places, a cloak, some tassels, some purity seals and scrolls and things. He doesn't have the slain Tyrannid beastie on the ground though. As mentioned, he does seem to have been a particularly popular model for Games Workshop to remake over and over, to the point where people have often talked about that in the past. It's been around since some of the very earliest days of Warhammer 40k, and then has basically been in 3 different scales of Terminator armor since then. It feels like most of those updates have generally been when the entire Warhammer game and Space Marines have scaled up in some way though. Each one was a size up, besides this last one where he's just literally swapped out of Gravis armor into Terminator plate. As a result, I must admit, even by Games Workshop standards, this one does seem to be pretty unnecessary. They have certainly done several Primaris era models that might be a bit redundant, but this is one of the first ones where we might well have a current model going away and then being directly replaced by a slightly different sculpt of a new Primaris one, presuming we do lose access to the Gravis armor model and he's just pulled from sale as opposed to being a variant datasheet or something. It's just kind of surprising that even within the Ultramarines there's Cato Sicarius to redo, let alone all the many factions out there with releases far below the Space Marine levels. It does feel like a super questionable move to resculpt a model that most people didn't really have any big problems with, when there's so many characters in 10th edition that have been removed from the game as they've not got a plastic sculpt. We've only just seen Yuri and Rikarth go that way for the Drukari. Never mind some other staples like Caldor Drago, Captain Badrug, or Prince Iriel or others. As to why they're doing this, I guess we can only speculate at this point. I guess one reason could be if they want to release an entire unit of Victrix Guard, perhaps they wouldn't want two being sold on their own. I don't know if Calgar in particular is getting more love with this one, because there's been recent focus on him with Space Marine 2 where he's a major character, and it was quite cool to see him in action. I must admit it was kind of conspicuous that Ultramarines were left out of the latest wave of chapters getting new characters and combat patrols. Generally when Games Workshop release things for the core codex chapters, they've generally tended to focus on the 6 first founding ones. I guess they decided to not have Ultramarines as a focal one just due to them having so much representation already, and this one just being a bit of a nod to allow the other chapters to catch up. But maybe that was never the plan. Maybe the Ultramarines are getting the exact same treatment, if not more. I will have this Calgar model turn up alongside an Ultramarines Combat Patrol box. I really wouldn't be too surprised if it was Space Marine 2 hype driving this. It's certainly been a bit more of a high interest character recently, and I feel like Games Workshop twigged that was actually quite a major selling point for people to start in the hobby. Though even then they took their sweet time in getting Lieutenant Titus as a normal release Warhammer 40k miniature that you can play in game. Any sort of update isn't necessary to match what he's doing in the game though. It's very much depicted alongside Victrix Honor Guard in his Armour of Heracles there. So pretty much 1 for 1 with his current model on the tabletop. If they do remove that, it'll be kind of weird that you can no longer buy him in the way that he is depicted in Space Marine 2. So I really don't know if that's the motivation. Rules-wise, I wouldn't really see that changing to Terminator armor would necessarily need to change his core rules all very much. I guess he'd gain Deep Strike and lose a pip of Toughness. He could still have his command point generation thing, and the advanced shoot charge and fallback shoot charge for his units. If he is swapping to Terminator armor, I'd guess he'd be able to lead far fewer units though, probably not Gravis or Blade Guard, and he wouldn't have the slightly unusual effect at the moment, where he's creating some sort of super unit with the Victrix Honor Guard. If they did go the same sort of pattern of releases as we've seen recently with Space Marine characters, I guess he'd have a datasheet updated with sort of minimal changes. I guess they might have a bit more temptation to rewrite special rules if he is getting more major datasheet rewrites with new armor and less guard, but otherwise I feel like they could just change the armor mark a few of the keywords around, and I guess not be with the guard. If they went the same way as those, it'd be potentially alongside an Ultramarine version of the Gladius Task Force as well, with some small tweaks to have Calgar leading. In any case though, let me know what you make of the unusual leak. Would you be tempted to pick up a new Marneus Calgar model? How do you think what we can see of it compares with the previous one? And what do you think is Games Workshop's main motivation for releasing this specifically, as opposed to any other model they might release? In any case, I'll leave that one there for now. Feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics if you'd like to see more like this. I'll certainly keep the regular 40k videos coming, with new ones out just about every day. If you'd like to support the videos and keep them coming, Auspex Tactics does have a Patreon page as well, and you can find that link down in the video description. Channel patrons do get a few advantages, seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things come next on the channel, and automatic entry into the regular prize giveaways with a chance to win some big model kits each month. If any of that sounds good to you, or you'd just like to help support, the link's down in the video description. In any case though, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.